Great. Just a few more people are joining, and we will kick off now. What I wanted to do first is just very quick introductions. So we're going to run through the slides and just a few questions that we have between Rob and Jason and their experience and knowledge sort of around digitalisation. But yeah, we do have a special guest. So I just wanted to, Jason, if you could do a quick 30-second intro on who you are, what you do, that would be great.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Woodward. I'm the SHEC manager for a civil engineering company, PT Contractors, based in Southampton. I'm fairly new to the construction industry. I joined 4 years ago, having spent 30 years in the sort of towage, salvage and offshore in doing all sort of high risk work, but I fancied a challenge and a change, and construction met a lot of similarities, which has proved good, and some interesting challenges coming into this this industry. So that's about me at the moment. Perfect.
Thanks, Jason. Look forward to hearing a little bit about your experience with digitalisation and the health and safety in construction world in a moment. And we've also got Rob as well. Rob, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, Mason. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rob Bullen. I'm the health and safety, I just call myself the health and safety guy for Hands HQ. In another life, 4 years ago, I was one of Hands HQ's clients. So love the product so much, I decided to come on board because I really want to embrace digitalisation myself, really understand where our safety industry is going in terms of digital products. So another change for me, as Jason said, I've kind of changed industries. I spent 10 years in construction myself. And as I said, now part of the Hands HQ team, still loving health and safety.
Perfect, great. Thanks very much for that, Rob. Rob, well, I'll pass over to you to get us started with the webinar. If that's all right, you let me know when you want me to change some slides, and we'll make it like the Downing Street talks every night. You say next slide, and I'll pass you on to the next slide.
Very much appreciated, Mason. Thank you. And once again, thank you everyone for taking the time out on our Lunch and Learn session. For those that have been to some Hands HQ webinars before, we try and take a conversationalist approach, just to have a general chit chat about a certain subject. And we decided to have a bit of a deep dive into digitalisation this time. And we wanted to see how it's being embraced by construction and how we can move it forwards and what the drivers have been around that. Now, my first bit of research, because I said I'm quite new to digital products myself, I noticed there is actually a difference in terminology. So I hope I'm not teaching anyone to suck eggs here, but I found out digitization is different to digitalization. So digitization is when you take a manual product and put it into an electronic format. So the best example I can give in the health and safety world is if you can complete maybe an inspection form via hand, or maybe you're given a hard copy of a certificate. You will then pop that into maybe scanning it in online, and that is digitization. But digitalization goes a step further. What this definition is trying to explore and encourage businesses to do is to take that digital transformation. So how do you go from manual to automation? What products are you using? How do you go about it? So maybe the best analogy I can give about digitalization is like a learning management system. So that is managing a whole training process. So for example, a training register will be able to stipulate your training needs analysis for the business. You'll be able to coordinate e-learning training, and you'll be able to get feedback as well to understand if the process is working. So digitization is actually not just about making electronic products, it's about adding true business value to your current processes. And that's what we'd like to talk about a bit more. And I know Jason has a lot of insight there where he can share with us. So I hope that helps clarify between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation is the process or the journey to get there. Now, Mason, if you wouldn't mind jumping in then to the bulk of the slides. Thank you very much. It's all well and good me saying digitalization is a great thing. And where have we seen it so far? And what I wanted to share with you good selves now was kind of a list of certainly what I've come across and I've engaged in. And many of you on the chat have already acknowledged certainly the first point, where we're exploring more collaboration tools. And when I say interface meetings, this might be through cross departments, could be safety rep meetings. Doing a bit of research, I actually found out that the health and safety executive themselves have actually bought an annual subscription to Huddle, which is a document management and collaboration system. So actually the horse's mouth are embracing technology as well, which is great to see. And a lot of the e-learning and e-auditing services I now greatly see. I've worked with a lot of BSI audits now with clients to facilitate their ISO accreditations from an e-auditing perspective. And many of you have probably actually completed a lot of e-learning. Certainly the likes I saw at the moment was the COVID secure refresher training that CITB offer for free, and the stress management at work that the British Safety Council is offering, which is another free e-learning module. I'd encourage everyone to have a look at those modules if they haven't done so already. And of course, selfishly speaking, we've seen a massive increase in people asking about digitizing the risk assessment process and getting the product understood in-house and also then shared with clients for further engagement. But earlier last week, Jason and I were having a really good discussion about other things that we've seen in the industry. And I really like Jason's sentiment. And I'm sure, Jason, you'll be able to sort of qualify this a bit further. But you've noticed that it's all well and good we've had these case studies. But in essence, the reason we've been driven into this is around this opportunity for change in the business, and it's being more accepting. If you wouldn't mind, Jason, if you could talk about your experience and the key drivers for your digital transformation, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, hi Rob. Yeah, certainly. I mean, one thing I would just add at the start there, I think that this pandemic has actually accelerated that opportunity, and it's also certainly accelerated change and the acceptance of that change. We know as health and safety practitioners that there's always a resilience within organisations towards change or towards new systems. Some of it's case people don't like change, or they're scared of technology, they don't want to retrain, etc. There's lots of reasons behind that resilience, but I think the pandemic has actually forced people to accept, and I think the sort of the slide you're showing typifies that. I mean, we'll be doing a lot of our audits on site and in the office, doing whether it's ISO and our own internal audit system, using things like the laptops, cameras, the iPads, walking around site, and a lot of it can be done, and including meetings with clients and things like that. So this acceptance of, well, we've got enough, we don't have an option, we have to get on with it, is actually put some pace behind the development of people accepting digitalization of what we do, especially within this business. I mean, for me personally, we started this in the marine offshore probably just over a decade ago, and I was very familiar with it the time I'd switched to construction 4 years ago, and then found that actually the sort of take up with technology and digitalization was quite slow. A shortage of guys to do the job. The demographic has crept up, year on year, and so you have a much older workforce, which is more resilient to new technologies and change generally. And so it's this one of the positives I've seen literally over the last sort of 12 months is that those people accepting this new sort of thought. But for me, I came with knowing that digitalization was actually a very positive change to organizations. And when I started this process at PTC in 2018, I introduced risk profiling audits. And one of the findings from that and the analysis was that there was inconsistency in some of our processes. And one of them being risk assessments and method statements and sort of safe systems of work, if you include permits in that as well. And I'll put a little list here that I found lots of copy and paste, which I'm sure a few of you have seen. There was a lack of consistency in training for RAMs, risk assessments, and what have you, to varying degrees. There was no standards they were following. It was a paper-based system. So it had lack of transparency across the stakeholders involved in that. It could get lost. It either wasn't read, signed by some people and not all on site. The list went on and on and on. So I quickly identified that once we built an e-management system, that this was one of the things that we really needed to get to grips with was improving the quality of our RAMs. You know, we had some guys doing some excellent RAMs, but we also had some guys doing some extremely poor RAMs, or copy and paste, and they hadn't even taken out the name of the previous job. You know, it was a job in Portsmouth, and the RAMs said London and things like that. So that led us down this route of looking at what was out there, digital wise. We went on a near 12-month sort of vendor selection process, and as you know, we finally met up with you guys at London Excel, and the rest is history, as they say. We've been gone down the route of being a sort of a partner customer of yourself, and we now use the Hands HQ system, I think, very well. It's certainly improved a lot of those problems that we were finding about the copy paste, the lack of understanding of how you put a safe system of work together, etc.
Sure. No, thank you for that, Jason. Certainly a lot of rationale, and probably a lot of issues that people on here can absolutely identify and empathize with, to see how they can close those gaps. To give you, I did a further bit of research after our discussion, and to give you a bit more peace of mind, I found a really interesting stat, if you don't mind me sharing that with you, good self, and everyone here. The Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors sent out a survey last year, I believe, to understand about digitalisation a bit more. And again, to put your mind at rest and give more confidence, 72% of respondents to that survey were placing digitalisation and digital transformation as a business priority over the next 12 to 18 months. So it's great to see that actually construction are embracing it a lot quicker than maybe we might have once thought, or maybe other industries have already embraced, and we'd like to bring ourselves up to that match as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's good info to have.
So it's great to see, and definitely echoes with, you know, the sentiment that you kindly shared. Mason, if you wouldn't mind going into the next slide, I think it moves into quite nicely about, it's all well and good us talking about digitalisation and digital transformation, but what on earth is what are the advantages for me and my role? It's all well and good saying, yeah, you can do it, but what does it truly offer? And I really like some of Jason's points there, actually then talked about how those gaps are filled. And certainly, I know we spoke last week, Jason, about efficiencies, didn't we? What we think is truly in the digitization is saving time, money, and effort, in essence. And I really liked your point, if you wouldn't mind discussing a bit more about how it drives quality as well.
Yeah, well, that was one of my big things, was quality and consistency of the RAMs. But then when we analysed what the amount of time that the site managers were actually spending producing these RAMs, and even in a copy and paste form, were spending best part of, say, half a day to a day to write, you know, one set of RAMs, or they tried to write the entire job from start to finish, from demolition to completed building or whatever, in one set of RAMs, and it was like a book, and it was like nobody's ever going to read or understand this. So they weren't efficient with their time, and time is money on site, as everyone probably listening in will know. And my managing director and I, we sat down and we analysed how much time on average each of our site managers, and we did a survey, and then we practiced and played with your system to see what sort of time it was taken to produce not only a set of RAMs, but RAMs of a better quality. And actually, we found that on average, somewhere between 50 and 60% reduction of time to produce digitalized sets of RAMs using the Hands HQ system, compared to doing it in the paper-based cut and paste on a computer, dragging things from different places to assemble a safe system of work. So straight away, my managing director was very interested, because that meant that instead of doing 10 hours writing RAMs, it was only 5. That meant 5 hours checking the quality of the rest of the work that was going on. So it improved not only the quality of the RAMs, but it's actually helped us improve the quality on site. So it's more time for the site manager to be assessing risk, assessing the finish of a product. So even getting away from health and safety a little bit, we still have to, you know, we pride ourselves on a quality product. And we have some very sort of exacting sort of blue chip customers that expect high quality work, not just done safely without damaging the environment, but also a polished quality finish. And so that's actually helped us improve that as well. So it saved us time, it saved us money, and it's improved on the quality.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Jason. Certainly that kind of steals my thunder on that third point, that it's great to, you've embedded, no, not at all. You've embedded that full process and safe system of work. And that's great to hear, because that's what it's all about. I always felt as a safety professional, my challenge was always, I had the knowledge, I wanted to share it, but how best do you share that? And how do you integrate so many different demands into one very easily? And I think digital products has helped that. Certainly the other points I wanted to raise on this slide, if I may, well, we all know around the table here that those that have to complete any ISO certifications or any of the SSIP certificates, you very much have to submit evidence that you're actually doing what you're saying. And I think having access to your safe systems of work or any digital product that's storing safety documents just makes it so much easier to then incorporate and attach over to your applications. So from a practical view, I always found digital products useful that help me expedite these processes that are, you know, can be quite a long process in the application, but obviously very valid, that you want to make sure that you're showing your commitment to clients and other stakeholders that you have these certifications. And last point I wanted to make here, I think the other thing that's in it for ourselves is about awards and initiatives, you know, being recognised for our health and safety efforts. I've given a couple of examples here. I just received an email last week that the IIRSM Risk Awards, they've actually extended the deadline, and one of the categories is around risk innovation and digital products. So that's great to see that actually the people that we support are supporting digitalisation. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if some ROSPA Award starts coming up with some technology categories. That would also be great to see. And the last part I wanted to give as an example here was, I don't know if anyone's aware of it, but LRQA, Lloyd's Register, they've actually just donated £1 million to a new collab project called the Safety Accelerator Scheme, where they're trying to introduce SMEs with health and safety issues and trying to introduce them to startup technology companies to help resolve those issues. And that's great to see that people are putting their money where their mouth is to embrace this digitalization further. And Jason, I know that you're a big fan of LRQA. You do work quite closely with them yourself, don't you?
I do, yes. We hold an integrated ISM certificate for 45,001, 9,001 and 14,001 on our management system. And at a quite recent audit by one of the LRQA auditors, he was so impressed with the RAM system. He literally made the comment that he could see it becoming an industry standard. And this guy, before he became a Lloyd's auditor, used to run his own construction company. Okay. So he's very aware of the process of RAMs and how they work on site, or how they should work on site. So he was extremely complimentary, and we had already just achieved 45,001 prior to taking up Hands HQ, but it is certainly in the surveillance audit since has gained only positive comments from several of the auditors that we have. So it'll certainly help with the ISOs. It certainly helps with the SIPs. And as you know, we've embedded it into our safety management system, fully harmonized. So it ticks definitely all of our boxes.
Oh, thanks, Jason. That's great to hear. So certainly, maybe I could go as far as any digital product is trying to encourage that spirit of continuous improvement, and let's see where the business goes. Mason, if you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide, I just wanted to take a moment to see if there's any questions that we could help answer at all. Has anything come through at all?
Yeah, any questions, feel free to fire them in either by the chat. The chat might be the easiest unless you've got access to the Q&A. We did have a message from Mohammed, who said, I am an HSE trainer. Before the pandemic, I tried delivering training virtually through Zoom, but there was resistance. However, post-pandemic, people are more accepting of digitalization. I think that goes back to sort of point number one, I think, Rob. Thanks for that, Mohammed. But I think that goes to point number one, that it has really pushed forward digitalization. It's almost forced people into accepting change, those that might have been resistant to change before. So maybe a question that comes out, unless we're going to be going on to that in a moment, Rob. So sorry if I do take that away from you. But how can you help manage resistance across maybe some of the old school construction members of the team who want to stay with pen and paper and they are a bit resistant to change? How can you help manage that?
Sure, Mason. Yeah, I think a really interesting point, and I think it's always going to be a challenge in our industry. Certainly, I have to understand and put myself into their shoes to see what the barriers are and why they are resistant to that. And if it's around they need more help and support on the training of the system and actually showing someone on a one-to-one basis how the product works, you need to invest that time. So I guess my simple answer is you need to understand what the actual barrier is in the first place to be able to act on it. And as I say, I think it's always going to be there as a challenge to embrace this. It's just recognizing how you go about improving it and who you engage with to get it done. Because digitization, I don't think is a one-person effort. It should be a team effort to bring forwards. Yeah. So I hope that answers that okay, Mason, that I think it needs to be on a case-by-case basis to understand, well, we understand the drivers. We also need to understand what the restraints are and how we can overcome those. And some of those I might not be able to overcome myself, and I do need to then seek collaboration with other teams. Jason, if you'd like to add any comment on there, please do so.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I didn't get to mention earlier, one of the things that I was looking for when I looked at a digitized system was something that would act as a training tool, because I felt that one of the things that was not well understood was the process of producing and developing RAMs and a safe system of work. And that was after sort of interviewing through the audit process, all of our staff. So I wanted not only a product, and I was quite demanding with my list, as Mason will probably tell you, my wish list was quite large, but one of the things that it definitely had to do for me was to be a teaching training tool. And having the visualization, being able to sit down with the guys, or having one of your trainers like Lauren on a one-to-one e-learning or in a group e-learning situation was really, really handy. It was always for any change I've always found, and you probably know yourself and others listening in there, you always have to consider what training is required when you're bringing in any changes. Part of change management is to identify what training needs you have. So we needed training for the system, but we also, for me, it was about training people how to understand the risk, and the hazards on site, how they were going to set out to manage those in a safe system of work. And what the digitalization system does, it gives you a step-by-step process. So you have to complete step 1 to get to step 2, and likewise through till it finishes. And what it's done, even in the 6-7 months that we've been running fully since they've finished their training, I already can see on site the quality of the RAMs. I believe you did an audit recently of our system, and maybe you could comment on that. But I've seen, even in the last 3 months, the last quarter, the quality and the understanding of managing risk through a safe system of work has improved already. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think that's great to hear. The sentiment I'm picking up, Jason, is that actually digitalization shouldn't be seen as a barrier when engaging with these people that find it a challenge and change management. You sell this solution as an enabler or as an engagement tool to say, actually, this is going to help you. And maybe part of that change management process is to just highlight the true benefits that a system will offer, not just the business, but that individual, because, you know, we care about ourselves. We want to know how it affects us. And just like we saw in that slide, you know, we're arguing that digitization helps an individual carry out those tasks as a safety professional.
Yeah, and as a bit of feedback from the clients, I've had a couple of more mature site managers who have been doing it the old way, paper-based, for 30, 40 years, only recently sort of changed to the digitalization and doing it, and had some very positive comments from some big clients, and was so chuffed that they actually came and they actually asked, could they have additional training? They wanted to get even more out of the system, because they actually admitted to me that they've been resilient for too long, and actually it's a lot easier than they first thought. They are a lot more comfortable with it, and it's going sort of, you know, breaking that resilience barrier down and making sure that the training and the support you give these guys, and as you said, it's very much about as an enabler to them being able to be more confident.
I think that's a great observation. It's all about confidence, isn't it? And we all know communication coordination is so imperative to give people that confidence.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Just one last, before we move on to the next slide, I do have one last sort of comment that came through from David. So thanks for this, David.
Yeah, cool.
Rob, I know sort of mental health and well-being is something that's quite close to the heart for you, and it's something that you focused on a lot and something you always include in our webinars when we talk about it. But David has mentioned the change has increased some mental health and well-being issues. I don't know if you've got any sort of comments on that at all, Rob.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that's a safety professional on this call now knows that one part of the stress management standards from the HSE, change is an absolute factor there. So although change can be a welcome driver, I think change can be a stressor and it needs to be managed effectively. And elements of, Jason's strategy there of making sure that people are engaged, they're told, why the product is of use, extra time and supports given to make sure that change is managed effectively will helpfully remove that stressor, because you're right, too much stress will cause a mental health pressure and can be a concern, and we know that's very topical during the lockdowns. A lot of people experience a lot of mental health issues.
I'll mute there. I know we've got another slide to jump onto, which I can share now, but we do have one last question. Hopefully we've got enough time for this before we jump onto the next slide. But
yeah.
It's just from Andrew, who says, how have you found data capturing regarding near-miss reports and gaining greater operational intelligence? So I imagine that's through digitalisation.
Certainly for me, if I can speak as a consultant, a couple of years ago, we actually embraced, which is very topical for this slide, the iAuditor software to capture information about near misses being reported. The data metrics for a good software system, if they can present like a dashboard to you, or where you can export the stats and actually then truly get into grips with data analysis, it can really tell you some things that you might have missed off before. So I'm glad that a question's been asked around embracing data, because we capture a lot of it, but I don't know how much we do actually analyze it. So I think, a key driver in any good software system is making sure that the data can be presented easily and interpreted easily. Certainly, I know the iAuditor part of the, I think it was called, it wasn't Spotlight, it was, they gave it another name when they were trialing this near miss reporting feature. And it certainly did present to me, how incidents were being reported in terms of, I could see time. So the data could even tell me, is there any trends in days or times that incidents are happening? Of course, is there a theme about the type of events that are occurring? Is there any default remedial actions that the line management team are taking? So I think what a great question to ask about, it's all well and good having digital products. You need to make sure you're effectively using the data you're capturing as well, but fully on board with that point.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
That's okay. Last slide then, if I may. It's looking at, we've talked about the positives of digital transformation and digitalisation, but where's it going? If we're going to embrace it more, what other factors do we need to consider? And there were certainly 3 points that I could think about here. So we know that adopting cloud technology is going to cause cybersecurity issues. And we know there's an increase in cyber incidents, probably over the last 12 months since the first lockdown. So we need to actually think about, it's all well and good us having all this information. How do we still keep it secure? And I'm sure that's another subject that we'd like to move on to in the next part of our webinar series. I'm also very passionate about business continuity, and I'd like to see how that gets integrated into software systems a bit better. We can't just have health and safety on the side. We need to embrace general business risks and manage it from a holistic view. And although some businesses do that very well, others are quite in their infancy of embracing general business risks into talking about it in one subject, which I know, Jason, you're also very passionate about making sure that all risks are managed. I think before we talked about maybe some procurement risks and PR risks that we have to make sure are integrated together.
Absolutely. I mean, part of my strategy, sort of agreed with the CEO, is about engaging every single person within the business and what they do and what they need and what support. And all inclusive in one harmonized integrated management system. So everybody has a piece of it. They all have a piece of the jigsaw or the pie, and feel ownership. So by them taking ownership, it creates a driver. So they continuously want to improve. I mean, I sat in the back of a call with Mason this morning with Nikki about she wants to part of the continuous improvement progress is improve the training side. So we're looking at adopting the training part for Hands HQ to integrate that into our RAMs to further streamline the process as part of a continuous improvement. I didn't have to lead on that at all. She came to me with it.
Sure. No, thank you for sharing that insight again, Jason. I think maybe, would it be a fair comment to say that business continuity has been probably the overall driver in COVID? We all keep laughing that the only constant within these lockdowns has been change. Absolutely, yeah. But
I think it always is, to be fair. I think that is it, constant. If you try and stand still, you actually go backwards. I'm a great believer in continuous improvement as the norm. In fact, we fully embrace it here through our management review process. So it's literally, we're planning 2 changes ahead. So I'm already planning stuff for the end of this year and into next year and the year after. But to integrate it at a speed that we know that we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, gives us time to sort of evaluate the effect of that new process or the way we're doing something. But certainly the mindset we've now managed to achieve is that is always foot forward, even if it's only baby steps. It's going in that direction to achieve our ultimate sort of objective of interdependency.
No, I really like that sentiment. It comes back to our original question, why has COVID driven digital transformation? Because there has been constant change and we need to keep abreast of that.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense why these drivers have actually increased digitalization. Last point, if I may, then it's more of a challenge to everyone on the call, really. Since being part of Hands HQ, I've learned about a lot of digital terminology that's used in the IT language, I suppose. And the infographic that I'm sharing with you now is a borrowed concept from IT. So they actually describe delivering their IT product as a stack. So in order for that product to run efficiently, there's certain services and companies they need to engage with in order to deliver that. And I thought this was a great model when thinking about health and safety digital transformation. My question here is, what's in your safety stack? And that's what I'm sharing with you now. So I took a step back and I reflected, okay, what are the core services I deliver as a health and safety professional? And I wrote down, as you can see, the 5 here: the RAMs, audits, investigations, legal updates, and PPE, of course. And then I wanted to then challenge myself further and thought, okay, I know how to do all these 5. How do I best deliver that service using something available in the market? So on the other side of the safety stack here, you can see the products I engage in order to make sure those deliverables are given at the highest level of detail, really, to protect liabilities of a company. And hopefully some people have come across this concept before. My challenge would be, have you thought about your services in this before? Could you write your own safety stack? And it's certainly something that we'll be exploring more in topic 2 of our webinar series. Jason, I know you quite like the sentiment of this as well, because it helped keep a structure of how many deliverables you have to have under your responsibility for your role and how you seek to then plug those with the best thing available on the market.
Absolutely. Again, and funnily enough, I've just realised where I'm sat in the meeting room here. There's a chart on the back wall there that actually shows all those processes in a not in a nice sort of slide like you've got there, but actually broken out into what they do and how they fit in with things like CDM and all the processes that we have through our process charts, which is what that is on the back board there, a process map. Showing how all of these different things go into it. As part of our continuous improvement mantra or mindset is the fact that we always look to be a early adopter. We're never going to be the biggest, but we would like to be the best at what we do. Hence, that's why we were one of the first in the country to get not only 45001, but to have it as a fully integrated system with the other ISO standards. And we've done that by, or helping. What's helped do that is things like adopting things like the top set, the compliance people's LUS system for legislation, the Hands HQ RAMs. These are considered by us and many other of my peers as the best in class services that you can use. So if you elect to use all of the best in class services, well, there's one easy sort of outcome to that, is you are going to end up with a very, very good system that people feel comfortable. It does what it says on the tin almost.
No, I think that's great. And just to then plug in these services against digital products, as you rightfully said, some things here are a digital product. Like I know you use the LUS for your legal registers, for example. The top set, many people on this call will be aware of the free root cause analysis tool that they made available during the second lockdown. I'm not sure if it's still free now, but by all means, please do investigate into it if you haven't already seen it. It's a great tool. And even your PPE providers are then building up specialist catalogs for their clients, so you know that certain products can't be selected by your workforce. So it's great to see that barriers are being overcome with digital products. And I must say here, this is just my safety stack. That doesn't mean that's the right answer. I think as a main takeaway here for everyone on the call, if you could then think about what are your main responsibilities in your job and how you plug in them at the moment, and is there a better way of doing that? I'm always looking to continually improve my services because I'm not going to know absolutely everything. I've only been in the safety game 10 years. I've still got a lot more to learn, and I want to make sure my ears are on the ground with the market to understand where can I improve my service. You know, many of people on this call may say, well, training's a massive responsibility. And you're absolutely right. I didn't have room to incorporate training duties, but what product do you use to get your training coordinated properly?
Yeah, it's a good point. And one short point I could add to that, Rob, as well, is going back to what I said earlier, is about adding confidence. Yeah. If you're using a digitalized system, the one advantage of digitalized system is that it can also keep pace with the required changes to keep it as a best-in-class product or system. Where years ago you would buy a system or a set of CDs, or you'd have to download something, and then until you paid your money sort of a year or two later, you wouldn't get any updates, and it all became very clunky, cumbersome, and expensive. The two words that spring to mind is lean and agile, which businesses, I think, especially through COVID, we've managed to successfully keep working, as I'm sure many other businesses have. But lean and agile are two words that we use a lot, and we look for that in all of the systems in our safety stack. That are they lean? Are they agile? Are they giving us really good value for money? And do they continue to do that? And will they continue to do that in the future? So it's about having relationships. I have relationships with everybody in my safety stack, as I do with your good selves.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Jason. And those dividends pay off long term if you embrace
Massively.
that. So that's great to see. I really appreciate your comments today, Jason. Thank you very much. And that's certainly everything for me. Mason, did you want to introduce the second session, or are there any questions for more importantly?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think first of all, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to pop those in. Just as to sort of finish this off, we do have another webinar that we are running in a couple of weeks' time. This is going to be around cloud-based software as a service. So it's something that I'm sure we've mentioned today, something that Hands HQ is. But what we want to understand is, what is it, and is it right for your organization? It might be the first time we've actually come across the word SaaS, so we're going to be discussing that. And I guess the way that you go about also sort of finding these products and finding the product that is right for your business. You know, what are the key indicators that shows that actually, yes, this product is right for us? So we're going to be able to break that down in a little bit next time as well. So, but yeah, any questions, feel free to pass those through to us. We did have a comment on the last slide from David. Thanks, David. All of what you've indicated, we'll think about others and break down what is actually in each segment. May have room for improvement. So it's a great graphical prompt, that, Rob. So thanks for putting that together. Another way that I've heard this, which is a little bit more relevant, I guess, to construction, is a toolbox of digitalisation, which I quite liked. It's a way that a few construction companies have discussed that before. Yeah, any final questions, feel free to get those in now. If not, if there are any questions that anyone has, feel free to reach out to either myself, Rob, or Jason as well. So add us on LinkedIn. You can find us, send us a message, or you should have my email as well. So feel free to get in touch, and I can always pass on any of these questions to the rest of the team as well. But I think that's about it for now. I don't think we've had any more questions come in, but thanks very much for joining, everyone. And Jason, Rob, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing everyone on the next webinar in a couple of weeks' time as well. So 10th of March at 12 o'clock, and we shall see you there.
Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure, everyone. Thank you.